One question that I've gotten a lot, and I actually don't think I've ever had a great answer to, is how do you make sure you're not casting too wide of a net in your ABX approach? Like too many accounts is obviously a problem for sellers, and that's always a balance between sales and marketing. Is sellers have limited bandwidth. How do you make sure that you're maximizing your spend and maximizing your marketing efforts without casting too wide of a net?
Really good question. I mean, probably one of the biggest mistakes I see companies make is having too many accounts, especially too many accounts for sort of the top tiers. So a couple tips and tricks. The first, don't call it tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Because if you do that, all the reps are going to want their accounts to be tier 1. So, we just call it one-to-ones, one-to-fews, and one-to-manys, because there's no value judgment really built up there's no ranking built up in those. It's more just descriptive of how we are going to treat the accounts. That's the first tip. The second tip is don't pick the accounts and then figure out how you're going to treat them. Do it the other way around. Sit down with sales and sales development and marketing and define, hey, if we have a one-to-one account, that's worth X to us, how are we going to want to treat them? What are we going to do? So at demand base, a one-to-one account is probably worth $500,000 a year to us. So, that's worth creating a customized account plan. That's worth spending $5,000 a year on advertising. That's worth, top tier direct mail. But, we just write down sort of what it's worth to have, and then, all right, if we have a one to few, well, what's that worth to us and what are we going to do? If we have a one to many, how are we going to treat them? And by defining what I call those entitlements first, that tells us how many accounts we can really support without kind of overwhelming our ability to actually execute in either marketing or sales, on each one. And then we can go do that account selection process using Fire, to sort of say, all right, we know we can really only have 5 one-to-ones per rep, and so if that's all we can support, you go pick the best 5 with Fire. Here you go.
I've been asked this question so many times, and I've never had an answer that was that succinct and helpful. And honestly, I've messed these things up.
Now, if you're going to be just one step more nuanced, it's then, okay, for my one-to-ones, for my one-to-fews, for my one-to-manys, what other entitlements will I add if I see certain triggers, right? So if I see the intent signals that they're in market, if I see they just hired a new executive, or that their competitive contract is coming up in 6 months, when you have these certain extra triggers, then you can layer on another layer of entitlements as well. And that's when you get that system running. That's when you're really humming.